Assalamu alaikum, and this is Mahmoud from the Entrepreneurs Podcast, and I have a special guest today, Brother Saqib. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.
Salam. So can you do a quick intro, who you are, what you do, and then we're going to dive into why you do what you do.
Oh my goodness. My name is Saqib Qureshi. I am now a real estate developer and an investor of businesses worldwide. I also write books. My third book is coming out next week. And I've got a spate of courses on real estate developing which are available, and those courses are geared towards people who don't want to take on debt in their real estate, who don't want to make interest payments. And so how do you make money out of real estate without getting involved in debt? And so there are a bunch of courses that we have, which we've been doing for quite a while. That's pretty much the summary of it, I think.
Okay, cool. So now we're going to go back to, I guess, usually these talks, as I said, it's very casual. We're going to go in as if two friends are talking. So tell us, what do you remember? If you look back to connecting the dots, looking back at your childhood, what do you think there were things that influenced you, who you are today, like early childhood? Is there anything that stands out as a memory, as experience?
Yeah, no, my parents had a huge role in cultivating this sense of wanting to do well. Getting really top grades, not wasting my time. There was a real sense of, you know what? We're going to give you amazing opportunities, and that's up to you to take advantage of them. So that's the headline. Childhood was, really very happy for me, and I'm given a lot of space to find myself and do my thing. My parents didn't enforce a direction. They didn't say you had to be a doctor or an engineer or a lawyer. They just said, look, whatever you do, just do well and just come out with top grades and go figure it out for yourself.
And then you were a kind of listening child, because a lot of kids, they say they did rebel at the time, and you were like, okay, I understand what you do, what you do, and I will get good grades. I'm gonna be a good kid. Or you remember yourself rebelling?
The thing was that beyond the kind of putting out that target of just producing the A grade again and again, they didn't really have a direction beyond that. So there was an awful lot of freedom for me to choose what I wanted to do with life. They had no meaningful impact on my choice of undergraduate degree, or my choice of PhD, or my jobs, or what have you. They were like, as long as you are doing the best you can and you're comfortable doing it, keep at it.
So going back to school time, is there any subject, is there anything that stood out that you really wanted to pursue at the time, like early school years, later school years, high school? You did it in the UK, right?
Yeah, so I did my undergrad and my PhD in London. I have had a strong passion for the humanities, history, philosophy. So that's the space. Politics as well.
Okay.
Which is a bit sedate and boring, I suppose. Anthropology, sociology, the kind of subjects of other human beings.
I see.
I've had a strong natural inclination to those and an aversion to chemistry. I just couldn't hack it at school, so it didn't last very long on my education list.
It's all right. So, what did you end up studying? And what you studied? I remember I saw in the profile on LinkedIn it was the London School of Economics, if I remember right. Mm-hmm. And then how did that choice came to be? Did you know what you were going to study, or someone guided you? Because a lot of listeners and watchers on this show is like they are trying to, youth, right? They're trying to figure out, and then every time we share a story, we say, hey, that's all right to be in that state, if it is.
Yeah, no, I chose for my undergrad degree what I wanted to study, what I wanted to learn about.
Okay.
I knew that I didn't want to be a physician, so there's no point trying to study chemistry. Mm-hmm. But I was very aware that, I wanted to study international relations, which was my undergraduate subject, and I was very keen to learn more about it, and I did really quite well at it, and I figured that if I do that well, then other opportunities will open up. And I think this is one of the things that we have the privilege of in the UK, which is the disconnection between your choice of undergraduate degree and what you studied. Like, my undergrad degree was international relations. My first job was in corporate finance. My brother's undergraduate degree was physics. His first job was investment banking.
Physics.
Yeah, my sister's undergraduate degree was statistics, computing, operational research, and economics, and her first job was as a trainee chartered accountant. And so, so I think in the UK there is this freedom, at least, to be able to choose your undergraduate subject, which is to some extent removed from your choice of career.
I see.
And
removes the pressure, I guess, in a way.
Yeah, you basically have more time to find yourself. You have more time to understand who you are.
I see.
It's a bit unfair to expect a 16, 17, 18-year-old to have figured life out. I mean, that's just preposterous, in fact. You just can't do it. I mean, I know 30-year-olds who are still twiddling their finger trying to figure out what to do with life. And I think the kind of short, simple answer from my perspective is do what you really enjoy. Don't worry too much about the market. Don't worry too much about what's prestigious. Don't worry too much about, where that thing takes you. But at university, treat it as an opportunity to learn, because you're not going to find an easy opportunity to learn for the sake of learning after you leave university. It's really hard. Many people have ambitions to do a postgraduate degree and they can't because for many reasons. And many people want to keep learning by way of private study or have a book, that they go through every week. And in reality, they go through a book a year. So the point is that it's your last real chance for sustained, hardcore, selfish learning. Don't ignore it. Don't, treat it as a bit of a side thing.
I see. So you mentioned your work, but there's also something I just want to mention to the watchers, I guess. We cannot ignore our, and you were born and raised in UK?
Yes.
This is right? And you can hear the accent, and we're right now in Canada, but somehow you're in Canada right now, and somewhere along the way we get that story as well. So after you finished your work, studies, you started working. It was in UK, and when was this transition? Like, what brings you here? Like, when did you come here, and what was the motivation and reason?
So my first move from London was to Dubai.
Dubai, okay.
2006, I worked for the government there, and that was an amazing 5-6 years of
Dubai government.
Yes,
wow.
I really enjoyed that work. So that was my first real shift away from London, and from Dubai in 2011, my wife and I migrated here. She was from Toronto, we were born here.
Okay.
So that was the reason why we chose to migrate out here to Toronto.
That explains.
Yes.
I see. Yes. So it's been a while, 13 years?
Yeah, 13 years now, it's quite right. Been a while.
But you still keep the accent.
Well, I speak English with an English accent, so it's like really a bit weird.
It's a real English, right?
Yeah, English with an English accent doesn't sound like much of an accent, so
that's true.
Maybe I have to turn the tables on you.
Yeah, it's just like... No, I think I'm not the right guy. He's probably born and raised. I come from all places. That's the beauty of life. So... you started working at corporate jobs, but right now, as you mentioned at the beginning, that's not what you do. So what was the transition like? How was the transition?
I arrived here in 2011, and I remember wind up that the traffic to and from work in this city was awful. Public transport was just a disaster. That's in 2011. It's gotten a lot worse since. And so I was like, I'm not getting involved in this traffic. And the taxes associated with employment in this country are ridiculous. You're basically working for the government. So you're commuting for the government and you're working for the government.
Interesting.
So I'm like, no, this is not really my cup of tea. Thank you very much. And I kind of said, right, I am not continuing. I'm not going to be employed here under no circumstances.
Especially after Dubai, where there's zero tax.
Well, there's zero tax, but also the work that I was doing in Dubai was really quite exhilarating. It was, the opportunity back then in Dubai was incredible. Working for the government, you really had. I had an exhilarating job, whereas over here, this is way more pedestrian. So it's a much more stable setup. It's not easy to get that kind of exhilaration out of employment. And so that decision I made, I'm not going to be employed. And from there, like, okay, I'm going to figure it out for myself.
Let me ask a question, if you don't mind. I think that could be very interesting. So 2011, right? From 2006 and 11, you were in Dubai. Your decision was mainly because of family, or, time comes, that's it. For me, time to move on from Dubai somewhere else. Was it kind of a solution, or it was maybe both, a bit of both?
It was largely because our kids were still young back then. And migrating with children over at a relatively younger age is much easier than doing it in their teens.
Yeah.
And I didn't really appreciate some aspects of Dubai's culture, specifically around materiality.
But artificial.
It's just a bit too much. And I just didn't want the kids growing up in that kind of ecosystem.
Yeah.
Yes, parents have a profound impact on that, but let's get real. Kids learn a lot from their schoolmates at school.
Peers, yeah.
And I just didn't need to be on an uphill battle trying to deal with all sorts of effectively dehumanizing tendencies.
Interesting. So it was mainly for the family sacrifice, in a way.
Yeah.
Did it work out?
Yeah, I think so. I'm quite happy with what I've done since. And
Alhamdulillah.
yeah, it's been quite good. Just been a whole new business has gone up in developing real estate, 3 books. And now a fellow at the LSE, so I invested in 25 businesses worldwide. So
cool. So this is one interesting thing. You were, if I understand correct, so you studied international relations, and then you worked a corporate job, and in the Dubai government as well. And then we come here, there was this transition. There's employee way of things, there's entrepreneur way of doing things. Was it difficult, that transition, or you were already, because some people, they work for somebody, they're always entrepreneurs, right? They have this thing. So how was it for you, that transition?
I think a big chunk of it was made easier by working in the government in Dubai, because I was actually working in a remarkably entrepreneurial space.
Okay.
Where I had a lot of autonomy. So that's the first aspect. And the second was that when I arrived here, even though I didn't have any professional qualifications or local work experience, my attitude was, look, if other entrepreneurs in this town can succeed, then, I ought to be able to do it as well. Like, it was...
Yeah. If someone can do it, I can do it.
Right.
So, you see.
I never really thought about failure as an option.
Cool. So, as you mentioned also, introduction, and mainly I think the majority of your focus right now is real estate.
Correct.
Development or investment. Mm-hmm. And you also mentioned your third book, we're going to come into a moment. But I want to understand, like, how come? Why real estate? Why not something else? Is it some kind of...
Yeah, no, here's an interesting answer for you. So in the broad scope of industries out there, I understand very little. Like, there's like the vast majority of businesses out there I don't really understand. Like, I don't understand biotech. I don't understand, the entire space of chemistry, or, tech. There's so many industries I don't really understand. And real estate, is very easy to understand. There are very, very few moving parts to real estate. And it was like, okay, I get this. I understand it, number one. And number two, because I understood it, it was a question of, okay, where is the opportunity in real estate in the GTA in 2011? Back then it was student housing. And that's something, it's not a passion, it's just literally I saw the opportunity and I was like, I'm going to take advantage of it and deliver against it. So it was a combination of me saying, look, I can get my head around this, and there's an opportunity, so I'll take advantage of that. There was no... it's not a passion project. And what real estate has allowed me to do is to pursue my passions.
Interesting.
So I've done the real estate work. I don't get hung up on it. It's not how I identify myself. I don't go to conferences. I don't write articles on student housing or what have you. I wouldn't ever
7 secrets of the student housing.
But it's like, I use the real estate work in order to be able to do the things that I really, really, really want to do. Yeah,
that's a very interesting point you're mentioning. So what you're saying is not only you, anybody who wants to do whatever they want to do. I think usually what people do is, I don't like my job, I want to do what I love. That's good, but you have to cover your bases, right? That's what you are doing. Like, if you don't cover your bases, it's not about just doing what you love, and you still have your married, your kids, you have to put food on the table. So that's what you did. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, I think with the caveat that I don't like this notion of long-term employment. I think employment has become de facto a form of enslavement.
Yeah, modern day slavery.
You know, it's really an awful place to be in the long run. So I would not want any of my children to be long-term employed. So that being said, you do need the economic base in order to pursue what it is that you passionately love doing. Like, I've written 3 books and none of them has any material commercial impact on my bottom line. The first on strategy, the second on democracy, and the third coming out on Islam. There's no way I can survive a year on the revenues I get from those books. Like, forget it. You're absolutely out of the question. So why do it? Because I'm interested. I enjoy those subjects. I think there's an angle that I bring which is a bit different, and I put it in writing. You know?
So, talking about, I don't want to go into too much into detail of business. Like, inshallah, whoever wants to figure out, we're going to share the LinkedIn profile. You guys want to check it out, what Saqib does. But today, on the later part of the interview, I want to focus on the books and the passion part as well, if you don't mind.
Yes.
So you mentioned the first book is on strategy, the second one, democracy, the third one is in Islam.
Yes.
Very interesting progression going on there. So tell us the inspiration on the first one and like, if you sum it up in a couple of sentences, strategy, what exactly strategy you're talking about in the book, and why did you write the book? Like, who is it for? That's the question. Who should read the book?
So this is a book. So this strategy book called Reconstructing Strategy is a little bit more philosophical.
I love that.
And the essence of it is how you see yourself has a profound impact on the universe that you engage. If you see yourself as super smart, then the universe around you becomes a very different universe, in contrast to I see myself as super stupid. So which is why it's very, very important that younger children, for instance, are never told the limitations. You're not good at that. You're not good at this. Because you don't want the child growing up with a self-identity which is compromised. Okay? That doesn't mean you tell the child that they're the best thing since Albert Einstein in physics. But it does mean that you don't hold your children back by injecting in them restraints on their sense of self, which then feed into success or failure in life. So this was a big piece for my self-identity and its impact on strategy. The second, sorry.
No, yeah. So I'm just going to summarize for people, for me to understand better, then also for the people. So when I think about strategy, first thing comes to my mind is it's a corporate strategy, this and that. But in this case, it is a strategy about your life.
Yes, but also applicable to organizations and countries.
Interesting. And I think what you meant, the example you have given is with the kids, right? So basically what you're saying is you don't want to enforce your own let's say, limited beliefs onto someone else without knowing their full potential. That's why you're saying you don't want to say you cannot do this, you're not good at this, because that's what you're saying. Is that correct, what you're saying? Or
If you wake up one morning and you look at yourself in the mirror without any pretense, without any fakeness, and you ask yourself, can I do this? Can I take on that task? Do I have what it takes? Am I smart enough? And the answer is all no. There's not a hope in hell that you'll get there.
Yeah.
And you can't fake that either.
Yeah.
You can't fake it. So really there's a bit of a vicious or virtuous cycle here, which is that your self-identity has a profound impact on your success in life.
Absolutely.
Which is part of the reason I think I grew up in a school from the age of 7 to 18 where your kind of limits weren't really imposed.
Yeah.
It was a sense of, if you want to go ahead and do it, you'll just go ahead and
figure out. Do it.
You'll go figure it out. And I think that's a really important point for younger people to take away, which is that under no circumstances do you get in the business of limiting yourself.
Beautiful.
You just don't get into that business.
I love that. So, and what is the name of the book?
Reconstructing Strategy.
Reconstructing Strategy. And where is it available for those who want to?
Amazon and any other.
And we also share the link. So,
yes.
So this is not just one of your typical strategy books. It's strategy about your life, your internal dialogue, internal mindset, and we call it soul set and heart set. Not only for you, but if you master it, it could be helpful for your family and the future generations. So that's the first book. Tell us about the democracy. What's going on?
So this is a book about Western democracy, and basically what I'm saying in this book, what I said in the book, was that we think we have democracy in the West, which is people power, democracy.
Yep.
We don't have people power. We're not even close. So the people are not in power in Canada or in the UK or in the US. the people don't get to choose when we go to war.
Mm-hmm.
The people don't get to choose their taxes.
Okay.
People don't get to choose the laws. They don't get to choose what are the priority spending. Okay. All we really get to choose, let's say in Canada and the UK, we get to choose an MP who then gets together with other MPs, chooses a chief executive who is effectively a dictator, because they command the executive and they pretty much influence the legislature and they decide what to do. We have no accountability there. Okay. If there is a transportation project with the 6-month delay and $1 billion over budget,
Who's responsible?
nobody's responsible. Like, nothing ever happens. You know, I mean, if somebody in my team was responsible for a project which was 6 months late and $1 million over budget, there'd be heads. You know, the service that you get at Tim Hortons or Starbucks or at McDonald's is infinitely better than what you'll get in the public service. But it's odd because in the public service, you are forced to pay your taxes. Mm-hmm. You can be homeless, you are still forced to pay your taxes. Okay? And then there is a low performance output given back to you. Okay?
Interesting.
We don't have accountability, our government's ineffective, but more importantly, we don't have people power. The people simply don't have meaningful political power in the country. And so we can go on about, I can vote. I can vote for my MP, and my MP can make 1,000 promises, and in 4 years my MP will go away playing Xbox. We won't have any idea what the heck he's doing, okay? Until and unless he puts it out on his social media. Like, dude, that's not that. I mean, since when am I going to employ somebody for 4 years and say, give me an update on social media? I want to know I want to know who you're meeting. I want my MP to tell me his calendar. I want a video cam on on my MP's shoulder. Why can't I have that? Surely that's accountability. I'm paying his salary. I want to know what he's saying.
He's a public servant. Yeah.
But in reality, your MPs don't operate that way, and nor does the rest of the civil service, because 99% of your democracy isn't even elected in, which is your civil servants, the public servants. So it's like, okay, I'm not saying that we should change that. We may not. But what I'm saying is, grow up and just don't call it a democracy. It's not people power. It's something completely different.
I see. That's a very interesting observation. And I think what you just said echoes with a lot of people. Yeah, that's why you're frustrated. Like, look what's going on right now, right? That's something we want. And I think at this time of thing, a lot of students, you have heard, they're doing protesting and police is coming and taking, and they're just peaceful protesters. It doesn't make sense for us, but it's still happening, what we call this places. My question would be, I hear you. I hear and I agree. What would be a better solution in your case? Or do you have some kind of suggestions in the book? Like, what do you suggest? How can we do it better?
So basically what I turn around, I kind of spin it on its head and I say, when we mean democracy, what is it that we really want? We want government which is accountable, representative, and is efficient with its taxes. That's what we want. Okay? So how do you make government efficient, let's say, with its taxes? How do you know that you put effectively half of your income per year, because there's income tax and sales tax and capital gains tax, so half of your half of your income per year goes into this thing called government. Okay, so how do you make sure that the government is effective with the use of money? Well, for the first thing, any government project which is over budget or late, you go after the person who's running the project. First thing that happens, and he gets fired. We're done. I'm sorry, but you aren't staying in government. Okay. What else can you do? Well, did you know that it's harder to get fired by the Canadian federal government for underperformance, okay, than it is to get a job as an astronaut with NASA?
Wow. So all these are that bad?
It's close to impossible to be fired from the Canadian federal government for...
Once you're in, you're in?
So who's paying for the underperformance? We are.
I see.
I'm paying it. My taxes are going to people who are inept. Okay, so I don't want to be doing that. So why isn't there this kind of up and out? Why isn't there this kind of, we're going to slice off 5% every year or 4% per year of the weakest performing employees in government and say, look, guys, our taxpayers who happen to be children, because they pay taxes as well on their sales tax, the homeless, they pay taxes too, they deserve the best. They don't deserve underperforming people who clock in at 9, leave at 5, and don't give a rat's ass about what happens in between. So why can't we slice off, let's say, the bottom 3% every single year, or bottom 4%?
So there's some fire.
Why can't we do that?
Interesting. And have you noticed this thing mainly in Canada, or this applies to a lot of the Western or whatever the people they say democracies?
So it's applicable across the West.
I see.
So my book focused on 5 countries: Australia, New Zealand, the UK, Canada, and the US, which have a very similar set of governmental cultures. Okay, in Canada, it's a bit more pronounced in some respects. Certainly, the inability of anybody to get fired for kind of bad performance is quite a big problem here, and I don't think it's going to get any better.
I see.
I just find it fascinating that if you're in the public sector, by definition, you are sick more days per year than you are in the private sector.
I see.
Despite the fact that you are working fewer hours. It's like, really, I mean, why is it that people in the federal government are sick for 5 weeks per year, and the private sector are sick for 2.5 or 3 weeks per year? I mean, what's going on? So like, we know what's going on, but why aren't the politicians getting on top of it? Because that's where we save our taxes. Why am I paying for people's vacations?
That's true. Interesting. So what you're saying is basically like, how can we do it better, right? That's the right question. Absolutely.
That's the essence of it.
Absolutely. Okay. That is democracy for you, and redefined for the Saqib in his book. And the last one, Islam.
Yes, Being Muslim Today comes out 7th of May, God willing, publication across North America. The publishers are Roman and Littlefield. You can get it from their website or any independent bookstore. Yes.
Tell us
man,
the jump.
This is a big jump. So my son comes up to me one day, he's at age 15, smart kid, reasonably well informed, and I'm watching football. I'm just minding my own business watching the Premier League, okay, Saturday mornings. I don't want to be disturbed.
So when you say football in the UK, you mean soccer?
Yes,
Okay.
ball and foot. And he says to me, Papa, is Islam a violent religion? It's a very serious question, 15-year-old. And at first I thought, you know what, I'm too busy watching this game. And then I looked at him and thought, that can't be a serious question. And then I realized he was actually asking a serious question. And so I went into my library, more than 400 books. And I was like looking for a book to refer him to. And I realized that there are 2 types of books that on Islam. One is propaganda. So it's like basically a bunch of writers who are trying to portray Islam in a certain direction without really any meaningful backbone or scholarship. And there's a second category, which is like really intense academic, almost like font 3 professor books written for MPhil students. And I thought, okay, this isn't going to work.
So, a quick question here, Brother Saqib. So when you say propaganda, can you be more elaborative? So what do you mean by that? Just give some, like, maybe you cannot mention the book, but just give example, like what type of book are you talking about? So like those books about, like, talks badly about Islam, or?
Both ways.
Both ways, I see.
Both ways. So you've got some books that obviously, I mean, I don't really have the book that talk badly about Islam. Well, maybe I do, actually. There are a handful of books that I've got that are quite vicious about Islam, including Irshad Manji's What's the Problem with Islam book, for instance. That's a great example. Very, very anemic, I think, but I still wanted to read it. But there are other books which basically give the impression that the history of Islam is utopia.
I see, like a rosy picture.
So incredibly rosy picture, And I was like, my 15-year-old son, even he will be very skeptical about this. But
cannot relate to that.
He'll be skeptical. The source materials are very poor. He doesn't need this. And so then I began the task of essentially trying to take the last 30 odd years of proper, meaningful scholarship. Okay? And we have to understand that we now live in an era of unprecedented information access. We have, in the year 2024, we have more access to more Islamic materials and primary sources at our fingertips, plus access to experts through email and WhatsApp than we have ever had in human history.
That's true.
Okay? You want to do a PhD on Islam nowadays, you don't have to travel halfway across the world for it. You really can do a huge chunk of it sitting on your desk and downloading manuscript and original files. And when you want clarification, you go to the professor. Hey, professor, can you clarify that for me? Okay, so we've got this. And so I thought, let's just take the last 30 years of really hardcore scholarship, robust stuff, the stuff that the average Muslim will struggle to understand because it's written with every second word, 6 syllables or more. And this is kind of make it accessible for younger Muslims so that we know, okay, as a mass Muslim audience, what serious Islamic academia knows. So I'm not, so in Being Muslim Today, which is the title of the book, that book is not really discovering anything new. It's not making a new claim to knowledge. It's not a PhD. What it is like look guys, here's what the serious academic community has unearthed. Here's what they've got to. Here's what they know. Here's what they don't know. Here's the kind of theories around what they don't know. And here's the basis of what we think we know. Okay? And this is it. This is what it is. Okay. Now, so what I've really tried to do is to kind of take Islamic, like really the kind of cutting edge of Islamic scholarship in the last 35, 40 years, and make it accessible so that younger Muslims, can read it. It's there's 1,000 source notes.
Wow.
Which is quite a lot for a book that's meant to be almost kind of journalistic in writing style.
Interesting.
Okay, and said, look, this is what we know right now. This is what we don't know. This is what we're kind of guessing. Here's some ambiguities. Okay, we don't have answers to these ambiguities, and so you go figure it out, or you wait. You wait until more information surfaces. Some mosque is discovered from the 8th century, and it reveals so and so, or some archive is revealed in some colonial library in Vienna. Okay, and then information comes out. And so, what I've really done is not try to hide truths. I've not tried to, misrepresent anything. I'm not here on a mission to be pro or anti-Islam. Even though actually, in writing the book, I became even more aware of the beauty of the faith that the last prophet revealed was granted. But it's like, so it's been a fascinating journey for me, definitely.
So it was like in a nutshell, it was like a father's, like instead of saying, in one sitting you cannot say all of that. That's why probably you wrote a book. And it's like it's a father's advice to a son, modern day, explaining Islam. How would you say that? Or it's more like academic?
No, it's not somebody explaining Islam, because it's more this is what we know about Islam.
Okay.
And this is what we know about it in the 7th century. And this is what we know about how it changed in the 8th century. And this is what we know about the 9th century and how it changed. And, it's really a explanation as to where this religion began, how it has changed, and its position on key controversies. So, for instance, in some circles I hear Islam is always anti-violent, and the history of Islam has always been to accept and embrace non-Muslims. Okay, well, yes, there's an element of truth to that, but in reality that's not completely true, because there have been instances where political groups that have self-identified as Muslim have massacred non-Muslims for being non-Muslim. There have been cases of that. We know that. Yeah. Okay? I'm not saying that it's normal or frequent. Certainly nowhere near as much as Christianity in Europe, which became really kind of famous for its pogroms and its genocides. But still, it's important that the kind of reality of what scholarship is teaching us is just kind of simplified, made accessible.
I see.
It's well sourced. The people can go figure out for themselves, as opposed to, you see, the thing is, our generation didn't have Google on an iPad at every I've got 3 boys. My youngest, who's now 13, just turned 13. Everything I tell him, he goes running off to his iPad onto Google. Papa, no, it's not quite like that. So I'll say, it's not good for you to start weight training at 13.
It's easy.
And so for the last 3 months, he's taken every opportunity to dig up a website. Papa, this says it's okay. These links are okay. And I'm like, dude, just zip it. And so this is a very different generation. And if you don't answer their questions, you lose them.
Yeah, of course.
You will lose them. And so this book is trying to answer their questions and not trying to make up stuff. It's just not trying to make up stuff. My middle son asked me the question, has the Quran ever changed?
That's a good question.
Obvious. Of course it hasn't. According to academic research, then we just list out some of the changes that have happened. Punctuation marks, full stops, surah titles. I didn't know. I'm 50 years old. I only found out 2 years ago that there had been a serious debate in the 7th century as to whether the Quran had 113, 114, or 116 surahs. I'm not an authority on what number of surahs is correct, but I don't want to tell my children, that we know that it's always been, this number of surahs. They look, this is what we think it is, and the extra bits and pieces that people have been debating seem to be really innocuous, really innocuous. But broadly speaking, if you accept that adding punctuation marks and vowels is not an addition, you could say that it hasn't really changed. And I think it's important just to be honest about what we know and what we don't know.
I really appreciate it. So it's more like being objective, being like honest, and being saying, you know what, it's not just what I heard from my grandfather,
Right.
but it's what I figure out based on what it is. And I actually don't stop here. Go and do your own research as well.
Yeah. So, I thought everybody knew the last prophet of Islam passed away in the year 632. But now I've learned that there are a few sources from the 7th century which suggest maybe it's 633, maybe it's 634, probably 632. Now, is it material? I've got no idea. But I'd rather let somebody else figure that out for themselves and say, look, whether it's material or not. I don't want to be the person saying, yeah, it is definitely 632. I wasn't there when it happened. The records that we have are not definitive. Let's just be honest about that.
Absolutely.
And in that honesty, what actually happens is that there are some things that come out that are quite fantastic. Like, I'm absolutely shocked that I was shocked to learn that perhaps the most profound gender revolution in history was initiated by the last prophet. Like, literally, he took, at the time in 7th century Arabia, some women had the status of assets. Part of the Arabian Peninsula, you could be a female and therefore be an asset to be traded. He took women in 23 years from the status of tradable assets to equality. And that to me, frighteningly powerful stuff. But that won't come out if every second thing is spray painted with varnish, false varnish. You've got to let the religion actually shine for what it is without sugarcoating nonsense to children. And particularly, like I say, this entire generation of Google fans. Honestly, I've had enough with my 13-year-old son and his iPad and Google.
Yeah, this what you just said, it resonates with me so much. The reason is that, as I was telling before we started, I'm originally from Uzbekistan, and I left my country when I was 20 years old. I was living in Denmark, out of all places, 17 years. And when as you said, when you're around that age, when you're living in a foreign country, you gotta question every single thing about yourself, about your culture, why you wake up, and especially from sunshine country to UK weather is similar in Denmark, like gloomy and rain and snow. You gotta ask existential questions. For me, to be honest, when I started journey, so this is a journey, right? You are telling you go to figure out. For me, it was you know what? I want to be honest. I wasn't even when I left my country. If you ask me Muslim, I am. Yes, everybody is. I am as well. But when I started this journey, I wasn't really focusing on Islam. I was trying to figure out what it is. It led. I don't want to go into detail, but it's just exactly what you said. What you did is actually in the book, more like a pragmatic approach. How do we tackle this thing? And so when your son is asking, is Islam violent thing? So instead of saying no way. So okay, let me figure out. Let's look at let's call a spade a spade. Let's look at the facts. And I can share you how I think, but you're more than welcome to do your own research, because I believe in the end, Islam is not just, or any actually, by the way, everybody has a BS, right? Everybody, what I mean is belief system. So it could be BS, it could be a good belief system, but so if somebody says they don't have a religion, they don't understand who they are. Everybody has a set of beliefs, how we live, how we conduct ourselves. But somehow, it's not only relevant to Islam, it could be anybody. A lot of people are born into some kind of religion, right? It could be Christianity, it's Judaism or Islam. But some people just took it granted just as it is, just so everybody is. For me it was, until it hit me really hard. And I had to question everything, and then I had to go back. I didn't want to start with Islam, because I thought I know Islam is in my country, the bad propaganda, by the way. It's like saying Islam is a backward religion, all the stuff. I said, I don't want to deal with this, and I go back to doing the research. So I did what you said. I said, I didn't even question the Islam. I'm just saying, like, why do I exist? Like, is there any meaning in its existence? And then it started with science, then it went to philosophy, and then eventually it went to, the religions. But alhamdulillah, so what I want to make a very important mention here is that it doesn't matter who you are, if you're Muslim or non-Muslim, and I think that, as you said, even your first book, Strategy, right, is about getting to know yourself. And democracy is about getting the society, but this one is, again, getting to even Islam is not just only getting know about you or society, but giving to something beyond, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as we call it. So it's like a full belief system. So what I mean is that it has to be, it doesn't matter, it could be Islam or anything, but it has to be a decision. It cannot be just passive. That's why these questions are coming. Like we are conditioned Islam at home. They can hear Islam is this and that. Then the media portray it different. That there's this dissonance, there's this dilemma, there's the conflict, right? Where it comes from. I think. Would you say that if somebody who reads your book would you have a proper understanding how to do a research in their own way? It could be Islam, it could be anything else. But as a answer that question. If Islam is violent, if Islam is this and that, after reading that book. And so it's coming, inshallah, May 7th.
May 7th, God willing, yes.
Inshallah. And then, did your son read the book?
He's reading it right now. He's just finished his university exams.
Okay.
He has a pre-published draft version. He's going through it. He's raising a few eyebrows. We've had a few more further conversations. And I don't mind being the person to say, look, I don't know beyond this, because the source materials I'm citing, many of them are like PhDs, many of them are advanced papers and what have you. So at least I can say to him, what you now have is a good 30 to 40 years of the latest meaningful, robust scholarships, answers to some of the key questions.
I see.
And if that scholarship is saying we know, or we don't know, or we are kind of estimating, and at least you also know that, because it's so important to know that. It's so important to be able to say, this is what we don't know. We just don't know about this. We don't know what the population, for instance, of Mecca was during the last prophetic era. We just don't know. I've seen numbers which are the range, which is massive. Okay, we just don't know how many people were living in Mecca during the era of the last prophet.
So, inshallah, looking forward to hear from Saqib after his son reads the book. He's going to be satisfied with that answer he finds in the book, or he will raise more questions. But in any case, right, what's really important here, I think, what he's trying to do, instead of giving his son a fish, because, hey, this is my answer, leave it or take it, you're teaching him how to fish, right? He can go and look at the source and figure out this curve for yourself. Let me ask you one last question, this related to the book, so and all stuff. Like, does your book answer? Because for me, that's what my quest, like personally, but maybe it's a different. Does your question answer the purpose of or meaning of human life?
No, because the history of Islamic thought, so how different Muslims have thought about the answer to the question, what is the purpose of human life, has changed.
Yeah.
There's no single definitive
answer,
interpretation to that
question.
There are multiple competing interpretations of why did God create mankind. So I don't know the answer. I mean, I know that some people today say we exist only to worship God. And all I say is that's fine for you to think that. Just keep in mind that there have been entire vast Muslim communities and consensuses in previous eras which would challenge that.
Absolutely.
And
another issue with that thing, to be honest, I personally have issue with that. When English has sometimes the tainted word, like worship, like it's a very limited word as well. Like when you say worship, what comes to your mind? Like, do you know what I mean? It has limitations, right? So, I mean, if that is the case, there's a challenge in the Quran. Like, I mean, we're not better than angels. Like, angels are already there. Why are we to exist to worship? If it's like specifically meaning just praying, doing your sajda, then it's not the thing. So it has. So anyway, I don't want to go in deep. It is like a deeper topic. So, but does your book give those things? So this is what we think and the different way of thoughts and go and figure out. And that those, because why I'm asking is this. Look, it's good to ask, is Islam a wild religion or not, or this and that. But I think any person, like, there are the core questions. It doesn't matter if you're Muslim or not. You want to answer. Do you also tackle those questions? That's my question, I guess, in the book. How to tackle this kind of philosophical, you're into philosophy.
Yeah, so the thing is that I didn't want to venture too much into philosophy, but what I did do was to outline how Muslim philosophy has changed and the divergence within Muslim philosophical approaches. So, and the role that philosophy had in Islam, which goes really back to the 7th and early 8th centuries.
The Farabi, Ibn Sina, and the Khamis al-Ghazali.
I mean, even before them, like falsafa and Qalam were introduced with the interactions that Christian and Jewish thinkers had with Muslims, and they said, look, we have answers to these questions that we're posing you, and the Muslims would go, well, hang on a minute, we've got to think about this. Okay? And so it happened really very, very early. So what I don't try and do is impose a set of answers or frameworks. I just say, this is what we know. Here's the early interpretation of this group or that group. I'm not in a position to tell you which is authentic, which is clean, which is objectively correct. You can go figure it out for yourself, but just keep in mind that this debate isn't going to end with any one of us giving the final approval.
That's true.
We don't have the authority to kind of say this is the definitive Islamic perspective.
Absolutely. So basically, the book is called Being a Muslim.
Being Muslim Today.
And it's going to launch, inshallah, May 7th.
That's right.
And tell us where they can find the book.
Any good bookstore will have it. So
in Canada?
Worldwide.
Okay.
Yes, worldwide.
Beautiful. I really appreciate your time and wisdom for sharing with us. Tell us, for the viewers, where they can find more about you or connect or follow, if they want to follow your work, your thoughts, So
LinkedIn is a great place, but also I have a website, saqibqureshi.com.
Yeah.
That's another place that you can find me and subscribe to my newsletter on that, the saqibqureshi.com. Otherwise, LinkedIn is a great place to get hold of me, or Twitter as well.
There you go. And until we see you next time, Assalamu alaikum.